There's a conversation worth having about walking. Walking is genuinely beneficial. It supports cardiovascular health, helps maintain a healthy weight, and has real positive effects on mood and cognitive function. Nobody should stop walking. But if you're over 55 and walking is the primary or only form of physical activity you're doing, there is a specific type of strength it simply does not build. And the absence of that strength is behind a significant number of the falls and mobility losses I see in patients who, by every conventional measure, seem to be doing everything right. The muscles I'm talking about are the deep posterior chain stabilizers, the glutes, hamstrings, and deep spinal muscles that activate when your balance is challenged, that allow you to rise from a chair without using your arms, that keep you upright when the ground is uneven or you misjudge a step. Walking on flat surfaces, done at a comfortable pace, doesn't challenge these muscles enough to keep them strong. Over time, without that stimulus, they quietly disengage. And when they disengage, the consequences can be serious. Not dramatic, not sudden, just a slow narrowing of what feels safe. Stairs become something to think about. Unfamiliar terrain becomes something to avoid. The handrail becomes something to hold even when you don't strictly need to. And one day, a misstep that would have been effortlessly corrected 5 years ago becomes a fall. Before I show you the movement that addresses this, I want to ask you something. Drop a comment below with your age and the city you're watching from. It helps me understand who this content is reaching and how to make it more useful for the people watching each week. Let me tell you about a patient named Sylvia. She was 64 when she came in. She walked 45 minutes every morning without fail, had done so for years. She considered herself active and took her health seriously. But she had fallen twice in the previous 3 months, once on the front porch steps, once reaching for something in the kitchen. She wasn't injured seriously either time, but she was shaken. She told me she had started walking more carefully, watching the ground more, holding walls when she moved through her house at night. Her world had gotten smaller without her quite realizing it. What Sylvia needed wasn't more walking. She needed to reactivate the muscles that walking alone wasn't reaching. Muscles that had quietly disengaged over years of movement that was good for her heart, but simply too predictable to challenge her stability system. 6 weeks after I showed her the movement I'm about to describe, she called my office. She had gone on a weekend trip with her sister and spent an entire day walking around a city, on cobblestones, on stairs, on uneven sidewalks, without once feeling uncertain about her footing. She said she had forgotten what it felt like to just walk, without thinking about it. That feeling was back. The movement is called the wall hold, and what makes it effective is the isometric component, the sustained muscular contraction without movement, that forces the nervous system to recruit muscle fibers that ordinary walking never reaches. Here's how to do it. Stand with your back against a solid wall, heels about 6 inches from the baseboard. Press your lower back, upper back, and the back of your head firmly into the wall. Every part of your spine should be making contact. Raise both arms out to the sides and upward, keeping your wrists, elbows, and shoulders pressed against the wall throughout. Hold this position for 15 seconds while breathing slowly and steadily. Now here is the piece that transforms this from a posture drill into something significantly more powerful. While holding that position, press both feet firmly and evenly into the floor, as if you're trying to push the ground downward and away from you. Not a shift of weight from one foot to the other, a deliberate, simultaneous, downward intention through the soles of both feet at once. That pressure is what activates the posterior chain, the glutes fire, the hamstrings engage, the deep spinal stabilizers switch on, all at once, all together. This is the part most people skip or do half-heartedly, and it's the part that makes the difference. Stanford University research on isometric training in adults over 70 found strength improvements of up to 40% over 4 weeks with consistent practice. The mechanism is straightforward. Sustained isometric contraction forces the nervous system to recruit motor units, groups of muscle fibers, that ordinary dynamic movement at low intensity doesn't reach. You're not just building strength in the conventional sense. You're rebuilding the neural communication between your brain and muscles that have gone quiet over years of insufficient stimulus. Think of it less like exercise and more like a conversation your nervous system has been waiting to have. Sylvia did the wall hold twice a day, once in the morning before her walk, once in the early evening. She used the wall beside her front door so it was impossible to forget. The first week she found it unremarkable. She didn't feel anything dramatic. The second week she noticed she was sleeping better. The third week she realized she was no longer scanning the ground when she walked. She was looking ahead, the way she used to before the falls. That shift from guarded movement to confident movement is what this exercise produces when done consistently. It doesn't happen overnight. But it accumulates, the same way the muscle loss accumulated, quietly, steadily, until the change is undeniable. Here's something I want to be clear about, because I see people misunderstand this. The goal is not to become more athletic. It's not about performing better on some fitness measure. The goal is functional independence, being able to move through your day without calculating risk at every step, without checking for something to grab, without the low-level vigilance that exhausts people who have lost confidence in their own legs. That vigilance has a cost. It narrows your life. And it's not inevitable. The wall hold works because it addresses the actual mechanism behind that loss of confidence, muscles that have stopped receiving the right kind of signal. Isometric training delivers that signal directly, safely, and without any equipment or risk of injury. You're standing against a wall. That's it. And in 15 seconds, twice a day, you give your nervous system the input it needs to start rebuilding what inactivity took. Your muscles retain the capacity to adapt and strengthen regardless of your age. That capacity doesn't expire at 55 or 65 or 75 or beyond. What it requires is the right stimulus, applied with consistency. Not intensity, not complexity. Just the right movement, done regularly enough for the body to respond. I've seen this work in patients well into their 80s. People who had accepted a certain level of limitation as permanent. People who had modified their homes, changed their routines, and quietly given up on things they used to enjoy. Not because they were told they had to, but because it had started to feel safer that way. This movement gave them a reason to reconsider. If today's video gave you something actionable, please share it with someone you know who might be dealing with balance concerns or gradual leg weakness. And subscribe. Next week I'll be covering a specific morning practice linked to improved posture and reduced back pain in long-term longevity research. It takes under 2 minutes, and the evidence behind it is worth knowing. Find a wall today. Hold for 10 seconds first, just to feel what activates. Then work up to 15. Do it twice tomorrow. The body responds to consistency, and the consistency starts right now.